rocking and rolling this morning, right on time.
Woo, that's
Yesterday,
rare.
John, we had Nicole, and it was the first time I was using this platform, and took we're a couple minutes late, so I'm excited to get rocking and rolling this morning, right on
Yeah,
time, figuring it out, new tech, making it happen.
that's it. Ooh,
Well,
I
I'm
could be.
excited, dude. I'm excited for you to join us. I know you probably got a ton of stuff you want to talk about and help educate the community. So I'm just grateful and thankful for you to be here this morning.
Yeah,
Um,
be here.
before I give you the floor to give a quick little intro about you, I want to brag a little bit because um, you know every time we hang out, every time you come up in a conversation with someone, it always comes back to new projects that you've worked on or cool, unique things that you've done. And I'm always learning about what you've got your hand in and what type of different projects you're involved in. So I just appreciate that you're diving into everything, man, and you're helping a lot of people, not only locally but globally and nationally. So I'm excited for you to be here, man, and I appreciate you pouring into us for the next hour.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I'm like, wait, who's talking about who? I think about it all the time. I'm like, man, when you're living in abundance and you're living like, I teach my kids this, right? I put their hands out and I say this, repeat it back to me. I have more than enough. I have more than enough. When you live like that, it just you can't stop giving and being generous and sharing and doing projects here and there because you're just coming from abundance.
Totally, totally. I love it. Um, all right. Well, John Mediana, has only been in what the Middle Tennessee area for a couple of years now. Spent a lot of time out on the West Coast, Vegas. Did the rebrand of Las Vegas, literally the city of Las Vegas. Has worked with tons of influencers, from Layla Harmozy to Sean Cannell to I mean, man, the list goes on and on. Gary Vee, I mean, you name it. John has been in and around those circles. So we're going to have a jam-packed session today. As always, these community calls are going to be free. We do them monthly. We've got a sales call, we've got a marketing call, and then we've got a speaking call. So you can expect all of those each and every month. And we're going to dive right in today, probably talk a little bit about outbound marketing, some messaging, branding, all the things. But more importantly, what I would like to do before I let John do his intro is let's get this chat rocking and rolling. I see the good mornings. Thank you, David. Thank you, Celeste. Thank you, James. But what I would like to hear from you all is, what do you want to get out of this 1 hour with John and myself today? What are you focused on learning? What are some challenges, roadblocks, hiccups, things that you're working on maybe and you feel good, but you just want an extra set of eyes? You've got maybe a question around it. Please toss in the chat how we can make this impactful for you in the next hour. So things like, I'm working on a new offer and I'm working on my messaging. Let's dive into that today.
Yeah.
Hey, I've been putting out some video and haven't really had a streamlined process on how to bring in clients from my content. Put that in the chat. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm working on a podcast. How do I get more views? How do I cut better reels? How do I have more visibility? Put that in the chat so we can dive into that. So, my question to you, everybody, is what are your challenges? What would you like to dive into today? Or what are you working on that maybe we can all navigate and jump into together? All right, while y'all are doing that, I'll give you the floor, John. You want to just tell us a little bit about yourself and what we're going to into?
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna share my screen if that's all right, because I'm a visual
Good.
person, and I think people are here are visual too, and so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen real quick. Just make sure it's on the right one. And hey, we're all about testing, learning, adapting here, right? Everyone's here testing, learning, adapting. There might be some hiccups, but that's okay because we're all here to learn. So, yeah, I just wanted to first of all thank you so much, Jim. You are my brother from another mother, and I'm just so glad, that we've crossed paths. And funny enough, I had no idea what amazing of a friend and just friend, colleague, partner. Like I just couldn't imagine, what our relationship could be. And it's all about proximity. It's all about synergy and alignment, having the right relationship. So thank you so much, my brother, for allowing me to jump on this platform and share as well. And I love this community so much because everybody in here, we're on a mission. We're on a mission to create impact and whatever that looks like for you. And if you're just starting, great. This is the perfect place to be. If you're advanced in your business, if you've been running it for 5 to 10 years, great. This is the place to be because we're all learning, we're all growing, and we get to do that and learn from experience from each other. So thank you so much, brother, for doing this and committing to the success of others, right? Committing to the success of others. So if this is the first time we're meeting, my name is John Mediana. Just like Jib said, I think today, we'll fill it out and kind of hear from the comments. This is all about bringing value to you. So it's not about like, oh, we're going to present and I'm going to present. I do have some slides just because I had a little bit of knowledge of what we could chat about. Maybe it might spark some inspiration of creativity of like, oh yeah, I want to talk more about that. So that's kind of like the slides I prepared, but it's nothing like we're not going to go through any of them if we don't need to. I really want this to be comment driven. So this is all interactive, just like Jim said. And I think we have a good place with some slides just to create some ideas of maybe you didn't think about this when it comes to marketing. We are talking about marketing today. We're going to talk about outbound. We're going to talk about pocket. We're going to talk about all the things, whatever y'all want to talk about. But if we just met today, my name is John Mediana. I fell into branding and marketing by accident in the early 2000s with MySpace. Don't laugh. It's really embarrassing. But I was in punk rock music. And what Jim said is when I fell into MySpace, I started with design and photography and filmmaking and all that stuff. And that took me to places and spaces I've never been, no pun intended, MySpace. But it took me to hang out with a lot of celebrities, doing a lot of content for them, working and partnering with a lot of influential people that we know today as influential. They might not have started as influencers or influential people back then, but because of content, because of what we're going to discuss today, practically, they were just starting. Everybody starts at zero. Everybody starts at the bottom, right? So they were all just starting and they just started implementing these things that we're going to learn today or we're going to discuss today, and started working with a lot of amazing, talented people, started doing a lot of music videos. Like Jim said, Lewis Howes, Gary Vaynerchuk, Jojo Siwa, worked with them all, learned a lot, built some cool YouTube channels, got into Forbes and all those things too, but also rebranded the city of Las Vegas. So what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas was the original campaign. Me and my team rebranded to What Happens in Vegas Only Happens in Vegas. And we did a lot of cool social media campaigns and built everything. So everything that we're talking about today is coming from experience and coming from we've done the work. And that's
John, I've got a question for you before you jump in. Just out of my curiosity, bro.
Yeah.
How did it feel to rebrand the city of Las Vegas? Like, talk me through some of those things that popped up during that project, man. That's wild.
It's kind of, I never really think about it because it was kind of surreal, right? Like, I moved my family in 2018. By family, I mean I moved my wife and I. We were living in Long Beach when we got the call and the offer to become the creative strategist and content creator for Las Vegas. And it was kind of unreal, like I was like, this is the city that is known around the world globally for travel, for hospitality. And like, what am I doing here? I don't belong here, right? That was my first thing. I felt like an imposter syndrome, and I'm like, I'm just a nobody that's, and in my head, that's how I think, right? I'm just like a nobody. Like I've just been practicing this whole thing called content creation for 20 years. And it's incredible what a camera could get, where a camera could get you, and like what a computer could get you to eventually like to rebrand the city. So it was just like it was a challenge because this is the most well-known campaign on the whole entire planet. It's still getting awards today. So how do you even pay homage to that? But yet, like the biggest challenge was like, will people accept it? Like, what are they gonna do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It was surreal, man. It was a challenge, and we faced a lot of challenges. There was a lot of meetings, a lot of no sleep when it comes to taking on a task like rebranding a whole city, not just a city, but the city. Right? It is like the city that doesn't sleep, the city that is well known. It was just challenging, man. It was I felt like I gained 10 years of marketing experience just by being there. Just being in the room, sitting there, fly on the wall, literally spending millions of dollars. Millions of dollars was going through our hands every single month just in marketing. And I learned a lot. I'm very grateful for that experience. Oh, can't hear you. Yeah, I'm reading through these comments too. David, great. You're talking about you want to create more impact and more people, but your circle is pretty stagnant. 5 people engage with me. Yeah, I need to generate new leads, contact, and reach. Yeah, man, like I'm right there with you, brother. Like seriously, I was there many years ago. Of like, dude, these are the 5 people. My mom was liking my posts. My wife was liking my posts. How do you grow your circle? Right, you got to be in new spaces. You gotta create new audiences, new ports of entry. When I talk about ports of entry, I think about the many ways people find you, people know you, people hear about your work, who's telling your story. That's another port of entry. Who's telling your story? And if no one's telling your story, I think that you're not telling your story enough. Who are you telling your story to? All right. And whose problems are you solving? You got to grow that circle, and you got to get in there and get into groups like this, right? Get into actual like physical, networking events and stuff like that. And the thing about networking events is I'm like, it's bittersweet for me, going to a networking event and because everyone's kind of like there already knowing like, okay, I'm here to exchange my business card and all those things. So we got to like crush the norm on that and just be like, I'm really here, no agenda other than just to connect with real people. And once you're disconnected with the sale, right? Because every time it's like, oh, I'm going to find me a new client, and then we're going to go grab. I'm going to say, let's get coffee together, and then exchange our business card. That already is like you've already lost. If your main idea or your main motive is to go there and build relationships, disconnect yourself from the sale, or saying, oh, how many coffee dates can I create? I need to get 5 coffee dates. Like you're already set yourself up for failure. So just show up and build relationships. That's one thing. So, Jim, is your mic working yet? Probably not. Or maybe it's me. Is it me? Can y'all? I'm asking. Can y'all hear? Can y'all hear, Jim? All right. So that's an answer. What do you think are the highest leverage marketing activities for high touch, high trust solopreneurs? Man, Sally, that's such a great question. My answer for that is, and this is going to sound so against the grain here, but it's rapport. It's rapport. The highest leveraging marketing activities for high touch and high trust for solopreneurs is building rapport. You got to build rapport, and rapport can be built many different ways. But people need to, and I hate saying this because it's so cliche, but it's so true. That's why they call it a cliche. You have
How about now? Can you hear me?
There you are. Boom.
All right.
You got to know, like, and trust. Like, you got to build that know, like, and trust ability. And that is rapport, and people just don't know what that looks like because they've never been demonstrated what that looks like. How do you build rapport, right? How do you build rapport? And that is one of the highest leveraging marketing activities you could do, is building rapport, building trust in the market. And that's a big deal. So we could super dive deep into that if you want, but that's one of them. So sorry, Jim. Sorry cutting you off there.
No, you're good. You can hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
What's up with my mic today? It's
It's
causing
all
all
right. Like I
problems.
said, test, learn, adapt. We're like, this is real life, y'all. This isn't perfect. You got to punch perfection in the face, and you just got to keep on going. You know what I'm saying? This is like the perfect example of, tech not working one day, cameras not working one day. That doesn't mean you got to stop rolling and just shut it down. You just got to keep on punching fear in the face and just go with it, right? That's it.
I wanted to talk. I heard you talking about with David's question and Sally's. So if I could just jump in for 2 seconds,
Yep.
before we keep rocking and rolling. Great questions, by the way. Great questions. David wants more impact, more people. Stagnant circle. I've been there. I've been there a lot, actually. And when I changed offers, products, or services, um, my ideal customer profile changes, right? So, how do you understand, hey, am I around the right people? Can this product or service help solve a problem for this group or this type? What I would do in your situation is I would understand exactly the problem you solve, which I know you know that answer, but who exactly you're going to solve it for. So your marketing messaging should be around questions related to that audience, and some of the problems that they're facing. And what I've realized is whenever I've become stagnant, there was misalignment in my messaging compared to what my offer was. And there's different components in that, right? So you can be attracting a specific age, you can be attracting a specific industry, you can be attracting a specific type of person, meaning is it someone that is it a personality type? Is it type A? Is it type B? Is it someone that's an alpha? Is it someone that's a beta? Is it right? You've got all these different.
Oh, he dropped off. So you got all these different types of personas.
I'm back. I'm back.
We finish each
Um,
other's sentences, Jim.
you got all the. That was awesome. You got all these different types of personas, these different types of personalities, and sometimes we get in a stagnant pace. And what I mean by a stagnant pace is we keep saying the same things that used to work, or we keep saying the same things that aren't working for that growth. And what it really takes is outreach. So, like John said, you can go to a networking event. I would be very cautious in ensuring you understand who's in the room so you don't waste your time, especially if you're commuting. I know you're down in Murfreesboro, David, um, because you need to be strategic with events. I keep hearing more and more events pop up,
Yeah.
and I keep hearing how bad they are. I was talking to someone in our community yesterday, and they went to an event, and they were like, "This was terrible. There was just not the right people here, no one engaged, things like that," right? So I know that's real. I know that's out there. But I would just take the time to find the pace and the path and then test it, right?
Yeah.
Facebook's a great market to ask questions and see what the response is. And you can ask questions to build a relationship, not ask questions to solidify your messaging or your sale. So
Yeah.
you see me a lot on Facebook just asking questions and seeing what people are responding to. And then that's really me. One, I want to know what interests people, but also two, I'm testing phraseology and messaging that
Yeah.
will not go in my marketing outbound package based on how people are responding.
Yeah.
So I'm using social media to test, to then learn, and then adapt what John talks about: test, learn, adapt, TLA, his concept.
Yeah.
Um, so I hope that's helpful. Um, and really niche down on your ideal customer profile, right? Like really get granular, and then go seek those people and create the outbound messaging around how you can support those folks.
Yeah.
And I know you know this, David, but content to cash is a great concept, and we'll be doing a virtual summit on that. But there's a middle step, and that middle step is building a relationship before the cash starts to flow.
Yeah.
So I know you know that, David. And then I will jump in real quick for Sally. The highest leverage marketing activities for high touch, high trust solopreneurs. So I think that's similar as far as dialing in your messaging, similar to what I said with David, because you can do a high leverage marketing activity, high touch, and gain high trust. But if the wrong people are in the seats, you're fishing in the wrong pond, right? So validating and really trying to understand what activity is going to attract the right person, so that way you can develop those high touch activities, um, and gain that high trust because it's the right fit, the right market fit for what you're trying to do. And then overall, and John, I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Um, Messaging, we tend to get cute and clever and confuse the shit out of people.
Yeah.
This is one of my biggest problems in my business, that I have a lot of awareness around, and it's still a big problem. I tend to I don't know if it's just the schooling I had, how I grew up, probably working in the corporate world for so long, where like everything that was in an email had to be revised, it had to be cute, it had to be clever.
Yeah.
It was like a game for like 15 years of my life. And that just always pops up because it's part of me. But the reality of it is simple and clear.
Yeah.
Simple and clear. Easy to read, easy to understand. I know exactly what you do. I know exactly who you're looking to help. I am that person or I am not that person, right? Like you want to get to that it's me or it's not me decision as soon as possible. So that way, when you do the high trust, the high touch activities like your co-working groups, and I know you've got multiple groups of people you get together, right? I consider in person the highest touch opportunity. In person is where you're going to close the most deals. In person is where you're going to acquire the most information. And in person is where you're going to have the most energy transfer for things to pop up and come to the surface. So, for instance, I can call someone on the phone and have a conversation with them, but they're not going to feel my energy. They're not going to see my body language, my micro expressions, and the engagement is going to be somewhat limited. And if I call them, then I have to carry the conversation. Where in person, high touch, there's a transfer of energy back and forth. People naturally match each other's energy, right? So if I come in a burst of energy, then there's going to be that compassion towards that, and there's going to be that similar energy. Um, and I think too, in person is um, magic happens. But I want to really hit home this when I talk about in person because I've done this wrong for a couple years now. High touch, in person, I got it. Yep, heard it all, read the books. Yep, high touch, high trust, engagement, energy. But I was putting a lot of the wrong people in the room. And when you do that over and over and you don't turn anybody into clients over the course of 4, 5, 6 months, then it becomes stressful. And then you're really trying to pitch and find clients and build relationships, but you're not leading from a position of power because you need the outcome. So in order to not have to go into these situations and need the outcome, how can you get on the forefront? How can you get the right people in the room to build the right relationship, and the outcome will come down the road when the relationship is built? And I think that all goes back to messaging. So sorry for my long-winded answer. I just get excited because these are really good questions, and I've done this wrong. I'll say it again. I've done this wrong for years, right? When I started the event company in 2020, first 2 years, I was putting in the wrong people into my circle, and I was doing it. It was my fault. I was reaching out to those types of people because I didn't have my ideal customer dialed in, and I didn't have my brand and my messaging and who I wanted to attract dialed in. So I attracted everybody. Imagine this. Imagine this. y'all have been to my conferences, y'all have been to my live events. We've got one coming up on the 26th. Imagine if you walked into an Impact Effect event today. You're coming on the 26th, right? You walk in the doors, you see speakers, you see cameras, you see stage, all the things, right? The lights, whatever. Imagine if there was people that were absolutely wasted, hammered, falling down. Um, people coming in off Broadway that weren't even part of the event because I didn't have systems and a check-in desk. Like imagine that experience, right? I didn't have it dialed in. I didn't have the process. I didn't have the system, and I didn't have the right messaging. And you think about it today, if you walked into that, you'd be like, what the hell is Jim doing? Right? Like, would you ever buy anything from me? Would you ever trust me? You'd be like, no, this is a shit show. Even though in person, live events, engagement, face to face is a high trust, high leverage, high impact opportunity, you can really screw it up and you can really turn off people based on who's in that room and who's engaging in that activity. And I've done it, right? I mean, I remember we had someone come in and like start a fight at one of my events because they were drunk. We had someone come in and there was baby mama drama. And it's like, yo, this is a networking event. Like, this is education. But again, I had the wrong messaging, right? It was more of a party feel. It was more of a fun entertainment. When I wanted and I thought and I seeked the fact that it was business related and networking and growth opportunities. So I hit that one pretty hard. So I don't think I need to keep going on that. John's probably like, yo, where are you going with this? But it's just dear and near to my heart because I've messed it up so many times. And it really just takes some reflection and some time for you to just dial in. So without further ado, I'll give it back to John because he'll help us dial some stuff in today.
No, Jim, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. Like, I mean, even learning from your experience, like that is so key. What you just mentioned, dialing in who you're serving, like who's your audience. You know, if you're trying to reach everybody, you're going to reach nobody, right? And that's the important part. You got to stick to your guns when it comes to your value, your purpose, your mission, your vision. And it's funny enough how this kind of seamlessly kind of went into this next thing that I wanted to talk about. I think practically before you even start marketing or before you even start doing outbound marketing, and if you don't know what outbound is, we'll talk about that. There's outbound, there's inbound, and all those things. I love inbound marketing mostly because it's like magnetic branding, magnetic marketing. But before you even do that, you got to know why you exist. Like, what's your purpose? What's your business's purpose? What's the purpose of your business, right? Why does your business exist? And those are the things that Jim had to wrestle through, right? And he had to wrestle through that since launching the event space of like, why does this exist? And he had to really wrestle. You know, have y'all ever just wrestled with something internally and be like, I'm really wrestling with this right now. I'm really wrestling why my business exists. Who am I serving? I'm not getting any leads. I'm not getting any deals. Like everyone's talking about getting visible in the market and getting visible online and doing social media marketing and email marketing, and nothing's working, right? Like, I don't know if y'all have been there, right? But maybe you're there right now.
We've all been there, John. We whether you want to admit it or not, we've all had.
We all have, and that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
So all right. So let's go to this next slide. So where do you start if you want to grow your brand, right? And a lot of the stuff is marketing stuff, but you don't start here. You don't start here, right? A lot of people will say you got to get on YouTube, you got to get on TikTok, you got to. It's all true, but that's not where you start. And I want to talk about where do you start. And Jim tackled this without even knowing it. The number one place you need starting, if you're going to build a brand, if you're going to build impact, if you're going to build a big skyscraper and you're going to build something beautiful and you're like, man, I'm in this for the long run. My brand is here and I'm going to do this for the next 10 to 20 to 30 years until I retire. Then you want to start thinking about your brand as this beautiful skyscraper. And if you're going to get a tall skyscraper, you're going to build a big brand. You got to focus on the foundations. And this is what Jim was talking about. Okay. So this is how you build your brand. And the beauty of this, if you're going to stay on for the rest of this stream, I have a gift for you that I only give to our clients that are working with us. So I'm going to give it to you for free. It's a brand structure guide where you can fill out and knock out and get really clear about your brand, your mission, your purpose, everything that you see here. It's a Google sheet that you're going to have access to, that you could really dial it in and wrestle with it. Okay. And I'm going to share with you what that sheet looks like later on, but it's going to give you a lot of clarity and give you the starting point before you even go to the market. Right. And I see that the biggest mistake I see a lot of businesses do is they just go straight to the market and they start trying to sell stuff without even wrestling with what they're selling or how they're solving people's problems. So if they just had this before they went to market, they would have done exponentially better. Right. I personally believe, and that's the truth. I'm just gonna be honest. So this is the foundation that you need to tackle: your purpose, your vision, your mission, your values. And a lot of people are like, well, isn't that the same thing? Right? Your purpose, your mission, it's not the same thing. I'm going to break it down a little bit, right? Your purpose is what you feel like you were designed to do, right? What you feel like your business was born to do. That's your purpose in the business, right? Your vision is what do you want to see happen? There's a slight difference, but what do you want to see happen for your clients, for your customers, for your network, for the people around you, your community? What do you want to see happen? Right. So with Jim, let's just use Jim for example, right? He's in the event space. Jim, what do you want to see happen? What's your vision for Impact Effect?
I want to change the landscape of how education is taught through events in order to impact more people and shield them from the events or the opportunities that don't provide impact.
See, very clear. Yeah, you already have a clear, big vision of disrupting education through events, right? And you're disrupting it in a way because you see an oversaturation in the market for really crappy events that aren't bringing value, that people are just showing up to. They're not thinking about their audience, right? What value is going to bring them, right? Yeah, for everyone in this stream, go ahead and put your vision. What do you want to see happen through your business? What do you want to see happen for your community? What do you want to see happen in your business, right? The people that you
values. Sorry, let me edit that comment. I meant vision.
Are you good? The mission's different. And here's the thing. Everybody kind of thinks it's the same. It's not the same, right? The mission here is how are you going to achieve it? What vehicle? I like to switch out mission with assignment. What assignment are you on? What assignment is your business on in this season? Right now for Jim, the mission is to put on monthly events, right? The mission is to bring awareness to the circle community, to bring more value. The mission, see, it's the vehicle that transfers the vision to action and execution. That's what the mission is. Okay, so let's get that very clear. That's different than vision. Your vision and purpose, the purpose is what do you feel you're designed to do. For Jim, he's designed to really support and love and serve people. Like he's a people person, right? And he wants to see people accomplish their greatness when it comes to their business and create impact in the world. He feels that, and I'm not going to just speak for you, Jim, but I've just been watching you I've been watching how you work and I watch the relationships that you build, Jim, and I could sense I already know your purpose. Your purpose is to help people fulfill their mission, right? And educate them and give them an opportunity, a platform to get the word out. And on top of being a great husband and a dad, because that's like, we all know that, but your mission, your purpose in life, you're designed to help other people, right? And give them every resource that you possibly can. And you do that generously, by the way. So,
thank you.
Yeah. So the vision also, okay. So vision is what do you see happen? Mission is how are you doing it? How are you going to build it? What's the vehicle to get to accomplish that vision? Values is what do you actually believe, right? What do you believe about the business? What do you believe about the industry, right? Jim, your belief in the industry is derived from your values, where you're seeing a lot of events just not done right. Even you're disrupting the keynote speaking space, right? We talked about this often. Is like keynote speakers, they go in and they're selling on stage. And they're selling their latest product, their latest thing, and they're not really giving value. It's like one big commercial all the time, right? And what Jim's doing is in the way he's disrupting that is that his core values is all about giving value, giving resources away, right? Actually helping people in a practical level their business up. That's what we're doing today, right? We're talking about practical values. And because of his value system, he's not willing to bend when it comes to an offer or someone paying or something like that. Like you should hear Jim talk about the people that he has denied to be on stage because they don't value the same thing. And that takes boldness, and that takes courage, and that takes grit, and that takes a backbone, brother. Like, for real.
It's so funny because it's like some people just aren't used to that. And I think that's what actually, not the fact that it's a weird conversation sometimes, or there tends to be aggression towards it, right? I try to deliver it not in a non-aggressive way, but it's interesting because I I know that where I'm heading, and there is separation, and there is going to be a tough way to do this, and there is going to take grit, it's going to take failure, and I'm going to make mistakes, and I'm going to, although I say that, there is going to be a speaker or two that doesn't listen or slips through the cracks or whatever, right? Because that's just life.
Yeah.
Like, that's just life. Um, so I just wanted to share that because I want people to understand their vision. I want people to execute on the mission. I want people to believe in the values.
Yeah.
But it's okay if something happens that isn't aligned in your business. Don't beat yourself up. Don't, I did this last year with the conference. Like, there was one speaker who just spoke on what he wanted to speak on. Didn't fit the mold, didn't fit our conversation. PowerPoint was very limited, so I couldn't get a good read. I followed up, yep, and it just delivered. It wasn't it. And although I tried as hard as I could, and I have the values attached to it, I beat myself up over that when that happened. Like, literally, I was like pissed for 7 days.
Mm.
Like pissed.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to share that because I want to remind everybody, like, it's so important to narrow this stuff down. And like, when I first read this in a business book in college, I was like, this is bullshit. I don't need this. Right. Then I started a organic frozen beverage company and found myself all over the spectrum dealing with terrible, terrible people, but also amazing, amazing people. Right. And I did this exercise and I dwindled it down, and I watched my business change rapidly. Right. And then when I started consulting in 2020, I had a mentor push me to do this. I half-assed it. I didn't dive deep. I wasn't true to myself. We created the statements. We created these things. I'm like, oh, blah, blah, blah. It's like Nike, just do it. Tagline, this, right? Blah, blah, blah. Again, I found myself consulting for 2 out of the 6 companies I contracted that first week out of alignment.
Yeah.
Didn't have shared values. I'm wondering, why is this guy being an absolute asshole to me?
Yeah.
Well, because respect wasn't one of his values. There was no alignment there, where I need respect to operate, especially to go above and beyond, because I like to overcommit and overdeliver and be of value. So I just share that because you've heard this before. I know you've heard this before, but you hear how John's describing it. It's described different because where he's going with this is from a messaging and marketing standpoint, and this is the skyscraper. This is where you build the base.
Yeah.
So I know you've probably been through this, but I really urge you to just take a couple minutes today as we go through the next 20 minutes of the call and like really think through this stuff, because it's going to cause you some friction in your business if you don't stick to it and you don't have it nailed down. Like, this should be above your desk.
Facts.
On a piece of paper, and that you have to look at every day, right? Like, shit, I'm being a hypocrite. I moved my office. It's not on mine. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to write it on my mirror in my bathroom after this call.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I will take a client that's out of alignment, and then I will get frustrated. Then it will take up so much of my time, and then I'll probably end up refunding them half their money to get away from me, because it's sucking everything out of me. And this exercise alone removes that, and it also removes the messaging that isn't in alignment for me to actually attract that person. I'm thinking of two people right now in my business where, and I know exactly the content that they liked and why they hired me. I ended up letting them go, and it wasn't aligned. The content wasn't aligned with this. The content was a rogue video that I did that had some personality in it, but the people that it attracted weren't my people. So anyway, sorry for going on a tangent. Keep going.
Oh, that's so good. And here's the thing, Jim, that you had mentioned that you didn't even you mentioned it without mentioning it. Once you bend on your values, it's no longer your values because you're not convicted. There has to be conviction in your values. And the reason why you set those values up is so that you don't bend. So it brings you back to the North Star. Now, if you bend on those values, you're gonna get disrupted. Your company and your business and your ethos, it's gonna get disrupted because that's not what you're aligned. And Jim talks about this all the time, and he just talked about it right now. He accepted a few clients that didn't align with his values, and he ended up letting them go. And it's a hard lesson, you know. And the thing is, like, well, I really need this, you know. Sometimes we're just like, you know, and I've been there in business. It's like I can't tell you how many clients I had to fire, you know, in the first couple of years of my business, because it's like, oh man, but I need the money. I need this right now. And I'll wiggle my way in. I'll make it work, even though I know they're not aligned with my values. And it was like a client, like a nightmare, you know what I mean? That I was living. I was like, oh my gosh, like, why did I do this? You know, I was living with regret, and I was like, man, I shouldn't have done this. And I shouldn't have bent on my values, because I got to set that up. And if you don't do this in the very beginning, you're setting yourself up and your business for a lot of nightmare, like just nightmare moments, you know, and you got to set that standard, that gold standard ahead of time. And this is going to help you do that. So I challenge you, find that conviction inside of you, start writing those things out. What's your purpose? What's your vision? What's your mission? What's your values? And if you haven't done this in a long time, I just challenge you to revisit this and rewrite it and put it, like Jim said, I got to put it on my mirror. I got to put it on my desk, put it somewhere visible that you can see to remind yourself why you're doing this. You know what I mean? So thanks for sharing that, Jim.
Of course.
All right. So if this is the foundation, well, what's the structure? Here you go. When we talk about marketing, when we talk about visual expression, when we talk about all these things, look and see the foundation of your brand is at the very bottom. But if you don't have that, and you don't tie it to your brand position in the market, and I'll talk about position in the market, you can't build you could build an expression, but you can't tie that to the ethos. You need the foundation so that you could build a solid brand strategy. So when you put content out there in the world, it's going to attract the people that are aligned with your values, your mission, your purpose, and vision. Now, how many of y'all just, we call it spraying and praying content, but if you didn't wrestle through this, you're just spraying and praying, right? And you're hoping people see you, and you're wondering why you're not converting and why your message doesn't resonate with people and why this, that, or the other. And it's because you're spraying and praying without a true North Star of who are you actually helping. So the brand foundation, before you even talk about marketing, before we even go there, you got to talk about foundation. You got to talk about wrestling through with conviction the foundation of your existence, of your brand. Now, brand position in the market is really key. You know, there's 4 strategies I'd like to talk about. And these, if you look at the brands today in the world, you could categorize every single business in these 4 strategies when it comes to marketing. And I guarantee you, like, if anyone wants to talk about brand strategy or marketing strategy, they could talk all they want, but it's going to all boil down to these 4. So if you know the 4 strategies, you're going to really get a clear idea of what and how to market your brand. All right. So the 4 strategies, it goes like this. Number 1 is defense strategy. Defense strategy is you're top of market already. You're on the highest peak of the mountain, and your brand is doing really successful. So when you think about fast food restaurants, what's the first thing you think about? McDonald's, right? When you think about Shoes, high-end shoes, you think of Nike. When you think of creativity and computers and technology, you think of Apple, right? These are top of the mountain mindsets. This is defense mode. They're defending their title. So if you're in defense mode when it comes to marketing strategies, you are defending the title. And what you're actually doing is you got to outspend the other companies and brands that are trying to take your market. So that's why Nike in 2023 spent $1.3 billion in marketing. $1.3 billion. They spent that because they are in defense mode. They're defending the title, and the way to defend it is with money. They have the money to do it. They got to show up everywhere. They'll pay anything, right? The second marketing strategy is what we call the offensive strategy. Now, you would think that the offense strategy would want to take over the first place defense strategy, but that's not the case. If you're in offense mode, you're the alternative choice. So if you're not Apple, you're Windows. If you're not McDonald's, you're Burger King. If you're not Nike, you're Reebok or Adidas, right? So your messaging is going to be different. Your messaging is, well, we don't have any frozen material. It's all made to order. We're all fresh, right? We have char grilled burgers, right? Like that's your message if you're in offense mode. That means that whoever's not buying with the top of the market, I want to serve them because they don't want to purchase Nike. They don't want to purchase an Apple. They're willing to purchase Windows. So I'm going to start using my messaging in different ways. So you see a lot of Apple and you see a lot of Android. You know, sometimes they throw shade at iPhones and stuff because they're in offensive mode. They know that they're not the top of the market. They don't have the market. So they got to start attacking, you know, their competitors and not converting people, but just appealing to the people that won't buy from them. That's their marketing strategy, right? Offensive. So think about the competitors in your market today, right? When you think about the competitors in your market, who are they? What messaging are they using, right? I would consider if you're in offensive strategy mode, whatever message the top competitor is using, come up with a message that appeals to the alternative audience, that the reason why they don't buy with them. So I would do a lot of market research and ask the people that don't spend money with the top competitor, well, why don't you? Well, I like having a good customer service and they just don't have customer service. So they're going to go towards a boutique service. So they might actually work with you because you're a boutique service. So you got to understand the audience more and why they're not buying from the top of the market. Maybe it's too expensive. So they have a lot of objectives when it comes to working with the top of the market. The third one is one of my favorite ones. It's called flanking strategy. And this is what Netflix did to Blockbuster. Netflix came in as an underdog, right? They found a flank strategy is actually a war term when you're up against an opponent that has more army, more soldiers than you. Let's just say let's say they have 30,000 soldiers and you only have 1,500 soldiers. Just by the sheer number, they're going to win and crush you as an army and they're going to win the war, right? So a flanking strategy is finding a gap on the side where they're not. So their strategy, if they're bigger than you, is straight on just by sheer numbers. They could crush you by spending money, right? That's the defense mode. So if they're top of the mountain, they could just crush you because they spend more. But if you're in flank strategy, you could find a gap where their audience, there's a blind spot when it comes to these bigger markets. There's a blind spot that they're not serving. The audience that they're not serving, you got to find that pain point and triple down on the pain that audience has. So for Netflix, it was the pain point that Blockbuster had was the audience would go to Blockbuster and they would never have their DVDs. So every single time they're disappointed, they're like, they don't got my DVDs. So what did Netflix do in the very beginning? They mailed DVDs. That was their flanking strategy. So they always had the DVD available. They always had your DVD for you to rent. All you got to do is put it in the mail, and they made it easy. So accessibility, right? So they not only solved the problem, but they made it accessible that led to a daily practice of like, oh, I just got to mail the DVDs. They made it easy. And then they took it on demand. They took it a step further and they said on demand, they were the first streaming platform, right? And they were using that concept, but they went to Blockbuster and was like, hey, we have this unique opportunity. We want to sell you our company. We want to sell you our IP for $50 million. And Blockbuster was like, yo, we have 200 retail stores across the country. Like, who are you guys? Who are you again? We don't know you. We're top of the mountain. We got all the money. We got all the stores. And Netflix like, okay, But what you don't have is understanding your audience. And they have a big pain point when it comes to working with you. And you see that you're so big that you have this blind spot. So what Netflix did was position themselves in that blind spot, and they not only took over the market, they put them out of business. Come on, somebody, right? Like that's flanking, baby. That's the flank, baby. I love that strategy. So what are you doing right now? If you're trying to take ground in the market, what are your competitors in offense mode and defense mode? What is the big pain that they're just too big to see? They can't see it, right? That's the gap that you could fill as a company, right? That's the flank mode. The last one is called guerrilla marketing. It could be $1 billion industry like fitness, health, technology, AI, all those things. It could be $1 billion business model. There's a business, there's a $1 billion industry. You don't care about who's on top, who's alternative. You don't care about that. You just want a piece of the pie. So you're using guerrilla strategy. You're going to do mailers. You're going to do flyers. You're going to spend $20 on ads every day. You're just trying to get a piece of the pie, and you don't care how to get it. You just know that the industry is big and you just want a piece of it. And you don't care about your brand. You don't care about, you could swap out brands, and it's just like clockwork. It doesn't matter. You do e-commerce, you're selling stuff here and there. You shut it down, you build it, you shut it down. You don't really care. Guerrilla marketing is for those fast paced, they just get dopamine hits of like, oh, I'm making money. Oh, I'm down today. I'm up today. So if you're in that, then the tactics that you'll use is very, is guerrilla. It's just word of mouth. It's this and that. So I hope that helps. That's the 4 strategies. And ask yourself, what position are you in right now? And here's the thing. It's okay if you're in guerrilla marketing, right? It's okay. It's nothing bad. It's just know your strategy so that you know what to do. If you're in guerrilla marketing, meaning you're in $1 billion industry, but you're just trying to, find money out of that, then use the guerrilla tactics. Don't use offensive strategy. Don't use flanking strategy. Focus on that strategy and the tactics and tools for that strategy, and you're going to succeed in that. So I hope that helps when it comes to brand position in the market. And once you figure that out, once you know your audience, once you know your competitors, once you know how you are different in the market, you got to present yourself. What's your unique value proposition? How are you different than your competitors? And you got to lean on that and triple down in your messaging, right? So the way that you differentiate yourself in the market is by doubling and tripling down on the message on why you're different. So that's where content comes in. That's where creating your podcast comes in. That's where showing up every day online comes in with that message. Don't deviate from that message, because people are going to see you and they're going to put you up against a competitor and be like, well, this person talks about this. They're in the same market, but I don't know. I like them better than this person because they talk about real stuff. They're actually relatable. They're actually doing something different. Jim's market is huge. The event space is huge. And there's always somebody trying to come in and do something bigger, better, all those things. But what's different about Jim is that his messaging every day is talking about his frustration, but how he solves the problem, right? And the value that the events bring, the value that this circle platform brings. And that's the differentiator. And as long as Jim's talking about that message, he's going to win, right? Same thing goes for you. So I hope that helps. Everything on top of that, you're going to see in the Google Sheet that I put in the link towards the end of this, and you'll have access to it. Just make a copy of the Google Sheet, and you're going to write down your mission, your vision, your values, your purpose. You're going to talk about the three clients that you already serve. I hate the word avatar. Don't create an ideal customer, because it's just baloney to me. Write down the people that already have worked with you in the past. All right. Those are personas that chose to work with you. Why did they choose to work with you? Right. Who are you actually working with? Who are you actually attracting? When we go through that, you'll see there in the sheet, but everything's in the sheet too. I'll actually, you know what? This is a good time to put the sheet on there. So I'm going to put the link to the sheet. Is that all right, Jim?
Let's do it.
All right. So all you got to do, let me know if you're able to access this. Go ahead and copy that, paste it in your browser, make a copy, and get in there. And you'll start seeing there's a ton of tabs in the bottom. It's there to help you make content. It's there to get clear. I really hope it brings value. This is literally the and Chris could tell you, because Chris is in the chat. This is literally the brand structure guide that we give to every single client before we work together. They got to fill this out before we start pushing record on anything. So it's part of the whole thing. So awesome. How we doing, y'all? We got 5 more minutes. Is there anything that you want to talk about? Because I could go on forever, but I want to make sure we answer questions here.
Yeah, let's pull someone into our conversation. Does anybody have a question or want some clarity on this brand structuring strategy? Anybody struggling with anything they want to talk through in the last couple minutes? These calls are built for you. So these calls are to help you and create that true impact.
Yeah.
True impact meaning, what are you struggling with? What are your challenges? And how can we advise or at least brainstorm a discussion around it?
Yeah, it's good.
And we'll sit here for 4 minutes and 59 seconds.
Oh yeah, we'll sit. We're going to answer every question. We'll do it. Oh,
podcast. Yes, James. I totally slipped my mind. James had a question earlier.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me, dude. I apologize for that.
What was the question? Let me see.
His question was, it was in the beginning. I forgot.
I'm super interested in starting a podcast like he suggested, but I am so ignorant of how to get started, how to be successful with it, and what the goal should even be. That's amazing.
The goal should be 21 episodes, because on your 21st episode, you're now in the top 1% of podcasts globally.
That's right. Yeah.
So that's the goal. 21 episodes.
Yeah.
And let John kind of dive into the details, because.
Yeah. No. Here's the thing that I love about podcasting, and it's because I use podcasting style. You don't have to like technically launch a podcast. I think the style of it, meaning what is podcast, the ethos of it. The ethos is you showing up every week, pushing record, answering questions, right? Anything could be a podcast. I did a podcast with Dr. Justin in a cigar lounge with one camera and a mic setup like this, right? So like that was a podcast. We talked about personal branding. We talked about those things, and it was a podcast. Like I think I want to demystify the idea of what a podcast is. A podcast to me is you getting a recording of something of value to someone else. The podcast, you could do a crime podcast. You could read books on your podcast. You don't have to make it this incredible thing that you know, people that you see podcasts do, like Brad Lee or you know, all those guys are doing. A podcast is simply recording something that is valuable to someone else that they will be entertained or educated by, right? And the way to do that, I think, like, once we simplify the idea of what a podcast is, it will be better for you to execute, because you're like, well, do I got to make it look like Jim's podcast, amazing, incredible podcast studio? Look at your spot. You know, you got this fancy mic, and like, yeah, where'd the mic come from? Yeah. Like, no, you don't need that. You could do a podcast off your iPhone, right? You could go live every single week, and that could be your podcast show. Your podcast show could be on Instagram Live or Facebook Live, and that's where you host your podcast show. The idea is you need a vehicle to create consistent content all the time. And of course, those things help when you level up your podcast, right? When it comes to, maybe you get a camera, maybe you get better lighting, maybe you get better audio, right? Like, those are things to help level up. But the idea, the concept of a podcast is, how do you show up for your audience on a consistent basis? It could be a daily podcast show, you know, and it could be for 5 minutes. I've seen podcasts. There's shows like, you got to redefine a podcast, right? There's shows that are like, this is my 5-minute podcast show. This is my 30-second podcast show. This is my 1-minute podcast show. This is my 45-minute podcast show. This is my 4-hour podcast show, Joe Rogan, right? Like, you have the power to redefine what that is. You just got to build a consistent way to show up, and then call it a podcast, whatever. But here's the thing. I know that the effect of having a podcast, and Jim could attest to this because this recently happened, the power of saying, hey, would you be a guest on my podcast? That is a powerful tool to build relationships, and also give a free way to get information from people that you've been wanting to ask information about, right? So like doing a guest podcast show of inviting the top people in your industry onto your podcast will give you credibility. It's something called the halo effect, right? Once you associate your name with someone, the halo effect gets put on off of them and placed on you because they were on your show. Now your audience is going to associate yourself with the top influencer in that space or whoever that is. That's the halo effect. The more times you do that, just like Jim said, your goal is to do 21 podcasts this year. What can that look like for you? I know that a lot of us struggle with the tech part and all those things, but you know what? I'm gonna give a free resource in the Circle platform, and it is I wrote a book a while back. It was called the Podcast Launch PDF. It was back in 2019. I'm just gonna drop it. It's a Dropbox link. I'll put in the resource. If you want to learn how to launch a podcast really fast and quickly, just read through that, and it will give you all the tips to do that. And it shouldn't be complicated.
John giving out the freebies. Let's go.
I'm just sitting on you just have the experience of just doing it, and like you're just answering questions all the time. You could also go to my friend Sean's page, Think Media, and they have a great video that we could put in the link about how to start your podcast with my bro Omar El Takori. They did a show. They did a great breakdown of how to start your podcast. I'll put the link in the chat. It's really great, really good stuff. And how to create a podcast for beginners in 2024. I'll go ahead. It's 15 minutes long. I'll put it in the chat. Just watch it. All right.
I hope the other thing too that I just want to, I know this isn't super related, but the power of podcast allows you to build a relationship and have true curiosity.
Yeah.
So you'll see some stuff come out here in the next couple of months related to some of the content that I'm building and crafting. But what has helped me is by doing podcasts, it has rewired my brain to have natural curiosity and compassion and ensure that the person is feeling heard by asking the right questions and by looping some of the content or the information. So what do I mean by looping? Looping is when John's talking and saying, hey, I'm going to give you this free resource, Omar, video, blah, 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 and say we're having a conversation, I'm going to loop back the same information. So that way John knows that I heard him correctly and I'm paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
When you start learning some of these ways to actively listen, to be curious, to communicate deeply, to ask thought-provoking questions, you start to engage and build a more solidified relationship. So John was talking about recently, because I had a podcast, because I had things set up, I ran into a keynote speaker at a conference and he got on my podcast, no problem. And he actually gave me kudos the whole time, and you'll see it drop in a couple weeks, but he gave me kudos the whole time because I was the only one that approached him and asked him to join me. And in that conversation, I showed up. I was thoughtful. I was listening. I was engaging. I was asking questions, and it allowed us to build a relationship. I'm flying out to New York to spend time at home office on this Sunday.
Yeah.
That all started from a podcast. That all started from taking the opportunity and building the relationship on the podcast, right? He didn't ask me the first time I met him to come fly to his office and spend time in this very small, intimate mastermind. He didn't offer it for free. He didn't even mention it. But after the podcast, because I built the relationship and I leveraged that podcast to learn more about him, ask questions about him. Now I'm flying to New York City, right? So there's opportunity in this. There's opportunity to collaborate. There's opportunity to learn more about people. There's opportunity to share about you if the right time comes up in that conversation. A lot of that conversation was about him because I wanted it to be about him. But right after, the whole conversation, after the cameras turned off, was about me. Because I asked questions and I built the relationship. And then once we were done, he wanted to repay that, and he wanted to find out more about me, what I'm working on, when's your book going to get released? Let me know if you need help. My book sold 3.2 million copies. It's in 30 languages. Dude, what? You're going to help me? What? Like 3.2 million copies at 17 bucks a rip? Like, what? What? You know? So I just think it's a great opportunity to leverage that resource. And similar to what you said, John, like everybody can go on Instagram Live at the same time. Go in your stats in your Instagram, figure out probably going to be like 3 o'clock or 7 o'clock p.m. or 11:30. At least that's my audience. Figure out when the most people are on and go live 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, for 7 weeks. Get your 21 episodes. Make sure you download them off Instagram, dump them into YouTube, and now you've got a podcast show with just your iPhone, and you've got it on 2 different platforms. Boom. I like how I said that at the same time.
I know.
All right, I know we're over time here, 6 minutes. Thank you, John. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for everybody in the community showing up today. It's been such an amazing call. I love the feedback. I love the engagement. John's sending out free resources. Take advantage of them. And stay tuned. We'll drop next month's dates and all that for the call in April. And we'll see you at the end of the month at the Impact Effect live event, March 26th in downtown Nashville, 12 to 2:30 p.m.
Awesome.
See you there. Thanks, John.
All right, guys. See ya.